Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Transformation Talk. I'm here today with jeweler Natasha Wozniak of Natasha Wozniak Design. And her work is so different and unique and amazing, and her story is just so heart-rending in so many ways, but really touching. And so I'm very, very, very excited to be talking with you today. Natasha, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for asking me.
So I would love to just start with the early experience that you had that really shaped you and made you decide very early on that this is what you wanted to do with your life.
Yeah. So the story starts when I was a young kid. My father was suffering from cancer, and he went through cancer treatment once, but then it came back when I was 12 going on 13. And at that age, it's really hard to really understand what's going on, even if people give you all of the information. My family was very upfront about everything that was going on with his treatment and what was happening. But, you know, a 13-year-old is still living in a little bit of a fantasy world in between childhood and adolescence. And so it was right after Christmas, and we were at home early in the morning, and the phone rang, and it was the moment the hospital was calling and asking my mother if she wanted to resuscitate my father. And, you know, even in the car ride going to the hospital, I still was thinking to myself, well, he can still get better, right? And his hair can grow back, right? But we arrived at the hospital, and he was already gone. So that moment, I remember that my family looked at me, and they realized that this was, even though this was a long time coming, this was a complete shock to me. So in that instant, my life completely changed. And, you know, when you have that moment, there's no turning back to where you were before. And, you know, being that age, I went through some very, very dark times. And also, I didn't have any peers that I had a shared experience with. You know, adults were very sympathetic, but it was my own peers that they couldn't fathom what had happened and how I had changed and how my life had changed. So it was a really lonely time for me. And about a year into it, though, I got this thought that I really wanted to be an artist. And I don't know why specifically metal, but even that part of it was already really clear to me. And, you know, my mother would ask me, what are you going to do with that? Like, what kind of job are you going to get? And already at that time I said, I'm just going to have to do my own thing. And, you know, it was really, really clear. And one of the other things about my father was that he had just been in the early stages of starting a consulting company where he would set up small businesses to use computers. So here was my father about to kind of embark on his own thing where he could express his genius for, you know, teaching people how to use computers. And it was never fulfilled for him because it was cut short. So I think that really, that feeling of, you know, look at this example of mortality that's right here in front of me, that life can be short. He was 49 years old. Life can be short, and you might have a dream, but, you know, if you wait, it could go unfulfilled. So I was very driven, and my mother said, well, you know, okay, so we'll sign up for art classes, and you'll start learning jewelry and metals. And, you know, she's kind of like, prove it to me that you really mean this, and this just isn't a whim. So I did that, and my first job was even working in a jewelry store. And the other effect from starting this pursuit is as I started to make jewelry and I started to make pieces, and I'd kind of gave myself therapy by spending the time working with my hands. But these same classmates that I had been very distant from as I was going through my period of intense grief, they sort of saw what I was doing with the jewelry and art, and they kind of became attracted to that, and they saw that what I was creating, and they started to give me a lot of praise and admiration for that, and I attracted new friends. So in a lot of ways, it helped me kind of dig myself out of this very dark place that I found myself.
Yeah. Well, and I love that on your website you've written about this a little bit, and you said that people actually bought some of your jewelry. Some of your classmates bought some of the jewelry that you made in high school.
Yes. Yeah. Do you remember those little metal frames that you could buy, and you could get little plastic pellets and melt them in your oven?
Yes.
And made these little stained glass things. So I actually took solder, tin solder, stuff that you use for soldering pipes together, and I'd make these designs, and then I'd fill in a little openings with the plastic. I found some left in our basement from my childhood. And I'd fill in the openings, and I'd melt them in the oven. It's probably incredibly toxic, the whole combination of everything. Yeah, so I think they were between 10 and 20 bucks.
That's great. That's so great. And I think you said too that one of the classmates that you had at that time came back and bought an original piece from you as an adult just recently. Is that right?
Yeah, that was last year. She had a mother's ring made.
Oh, that's so neat. So so you had this voice that just said, "Okay, this is what you're going to do," and you followed it. And your dad too. I think you said he had an art degree before his business degree.
Yes. Yeah. So that was another little unfulfilled thing that I always saw. I don't know if my father actually felt any unfulfillment from it. I mean, I think he just decided to move on to the next thing, and it was fine. But he had an art degree, and there are pieces of his art all around our house. And I always said to him, "Dad, when you retire, you can make art again." So I was a little obsessed with it, and he went, "Okay, honey, okay." So I already felt that pull towards something, even if it wasn't his dream, something that needed to be fulfilled there.
That's neat. I just love that out of your grief came this super clear message that this was what you were going to do. Yeah, amazing. Yeah. And then, so you went to kind of fast forward a bit. You ended up in Nepal for a year as a Fulbright scholar. Is that how you got there?
Well, the first year I spent as a university exchange student,
okay.
And I returned to the U.S. and applied for a Fulbright scholarship. So I went twice, actually, for two years.
Wow. So talk a little bit about that experience, because I can only imagine that was hugely transformative.
Yeah. So if losing my father was the first big transition in my life and life-changing experience, then going to Nepal was the second one, self-imposed, but the second one. I always had been drawn to different cultures, and it's one of those kids who looks through the encyclopedia and gets fascinated by all the things that were written about Angkor Wat and the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, and what are these places, and look at these images. So I knew that I wanted to study abroad, and when it came time, just like being suddenly struck that I need to become an artist and work in metal, I had read a National Geographic article about Nepal, and they were walking 3 weeks to get somewhere, and I just thought to myself, could I survive someplace like that? A girl from like a small town small city in Wisconsin, like, could could I do that? Could I make it? Could I shed all of these things that I think that I need?
Uh-huh.
So that was kind of the challenge that came into my mind. And 2 weeks later, there was a poster up in my in the hallway outside of my classroom saying, "Study in India or Nepal." And I just went, "Okay, I'm going." That's it.
Wow. Oh, I just got such goosebumps. Wow.
So, so I went there, and, you know, over the course of a year being there starting at age 19, you know, you go through all these stages. You go the initial excitement, and everything's new, and everything is fascinating, and you're just kind of overwhelmed with the excitement of it all. And then you go through different stages where sometimes you struggle with the things a little bit more, the cultural differences, you know, things that might not go, like, things don't go smoothly in Nepal in general. So, you know, learning how to be patient with that, and letting go of your expectations around that. And another thing that was really significant that I learned about was regarding relationships when I was in Nepal. Because the families that I stayed with, they had arranged marriages. Yet, I had this preconceived notion of what an arranged marriage is like, or, you know, that, oh, it's like, forget that, that sounds crazy. But I really saw that these two people had come together as a very, very strong team, and I could see that they loved each other. So I learned a lot about how there's not just one perspective on relationships is just one example, but there's not just one perspective of how to approach any major thing in life. I mean, it's not just like we eat different food. There's a whole different philosophy of how to be born and grow up and be married and die. So all of these things, you know, it completely shook me up and rearranged the pieces.
Yeah. Wow. And you were doing art the whole time you were there, is that right?
Yeah. So it was a very open-ended program, which was perfect for me as an artist. So I lived with a family that made Buddhist statuary, and I'd just wake up in the morning, and I'd go upstairs, and we worked upstairs in one floor of the house and get to work. So it was a completely immersive experience.
Wow. Wow. Was it hard to come back to the U.S. after that?
Yeah, that was way harder than going. It was, yeah. Because I had 1 year of college left. So when you leave and you make that big of a change, and this is true even if you don't leave the country, if you just make a big change but you stay where you are, you go back to the people that you were around and the situations that you were around before you made the change. And it's so obvious, you know, the big gap you have between who you were before and who you were afterwards. And you kind of have to create a whole new life once you've made that change.
Yeah, and that's such a formative time in our lives, too, that sort of late teenage, early adult. Wow, amazing. And your work is so clearly influenced by different cultures now that's neat that you had that experience.
Yeah.
So you were also living in New York when September 11th happened, and that impacted you as well. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I was living in New York, and I had different freelance jobs, and I was also teaching like one class at this craft students league in Manhattan. So I was sort of getting back into making my own work, because I went through this period right after college where I just had to take jobs, and, you know, I had to increase my skills and go from being a student to being in a, you know, working and so forth. So, but the Craft Students League kind of helped me ease back into, okay, I'm going to make some of my own work and work with the students and do more creative work. And I kept on thinking, like, okay, this freelance job that I have, it's going to be the last job that I'm going to take. I'm not going to have part-time jobs anymore. After that, it's going to be my own thing. But, of course, I was terrified to just go like, okay, it's over. Okay, now I start. It's scary for everyone to just go like, okay, it's time to start. But it happened to be around the time of September 11th, that freelance job was ending. And, you know, September 11th was, you know, that would be like the second worst day of my life. Just the, you know, it was a tremendous, you know, shock to everybody living in New York. And we definitely, like, myself and a lot of other people I know had signs of post-traumatic shock, you know, like not sleeping through the night and terrified every time I saw an airplane. So, I mean, especially the first month was so intense. And, you know, this freelance job, like, actually it ended right then. And I thought, what am I going to do? I can't just have nothing to do. I'm going to go out of my mind. You know, I can't take it. It's so heavy, and, you know, I can't stop thinking about what happened and the images and everything. So the Craft Students League, where I was teaching, had a holiday sale, and I went, okay, I need to make some jewelry and sell it. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to occupy my time with. So, like, 1 month after it happened, I immediately went, okay, I'm going to make something. And, of course, in the wake of something like that, I mean, I had a feeling that what is the point of the creative work? I had a feelings of uselessness for a while afterwards, because I didn't have any training to help anyone. I couldn't go, like, excavate the wreckage. So in order for me to not feel that kind of uselessness about my creative work, I felt that I really had to focus on having some meaning in the pieces I was making. You know, it's much farther along in the healing process from an event like that, where you look to, like, how can we make beauty, and so I guess I was kind of looking ahead to the moment where it was time to reintroduce beauty to my life and to other people's lives. And the human connection. So, you know, jewelry is very intimate. So how can I bring some kind of meaning and human connection into the work? Wow. So my first pieces had kind of a Buddhist theme. I made some pieces that were Bodhi leaves, and, you know, I very sincerely, when I made them, thought about, okay, I hope that something that I've made can bring peace to other people's hearts, and they can be reminded of it by this piece that they're wearing.
Beautiful. Wow. Wow. And from there, was there just no looking back, or what happened with that once you started making your own work again?
Well, it's kind of interesting that as my business grew, I kind of lost it for a while, like that aspect of my work, and really thinking about what the meaning is and what's, like, how this jewelry piece is connecting to another person. I actually lost it for a while because I was growing a production line, and I would go to wholesale shows and make all of the, you know, take all of these orders and design for the stores that I was working with. And it wasn't until, again, another difficult moment, the financial crisis happened, and, you know, all business significantly scaled back, that I went, wait a minute, I lost track of what I was doing, and I need to go back to this deeper level of my work.
Wow. Wow. So, yeah, so your life seems to be really marked by these sort of crises, which I think is very human and very normal, but it's interesting that it's so clear in your life.
Yeah, it's just these chapters of, you know, this, and then there's a pivot, and then this, and then, it's just, it's true. It's, I guess taking the dark matter that remains after that and spinning it into something new for myself. I don't know. I'm an alchemist, taking that dark matter and making it into gold, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you really are in so many ways, because you make these incredibly stunning pieces that are just so different from anything. And there is a lot of your pieces too. I sense a real darkness and a lightness in them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's something like a toughness too.
Yes.
In the work, yeah.
Yeah, but like some of your metals that you use are so dark, and that but they're these fine designs. It's so interesting. It's just fascinating. And for people who want to check it out, because we're talking about it, it's natashajewelry.com. And I want to ask you a little bit about the Nyaka collection. Can you tell us how that came about?
Well, one of my friends from high school, actually, she started working for this organization in Uganda that helps AIDS orphans. And basically, there's all of these grandmothers. The parents have passed away, and all of these grandmothers have taken on the responsibility of caring for the orphans. And before the organization started, there they were, like, doing the best they could with very, very limited resources. And if you see pictures of some of these grandmothers, they're quite aged, and some of them are frail, but yet they're putting all of their energy into taking care of these kids. I had a thought for a while previous to this that I'd like to bring in some philanthropic project into my business where, I could use my jewelry to help somebody in some manner. So when she told me about the grandmothers, and especially about some of the things that they were making as fundraising items, I realized that was what I wanted to do. And it was a perfect partnership because my friend is one of the directors of the organization. So it was very easy for us to come up with a great way to collaborate and create these pendants. So one of the pendants is based on the coil basket that the grandmothers make. And then the other one is based on the style of clothing that they make, has these decorative prints on them. So I chose these two different themes and made pendants. Now, whenever anybody buys a piece, I give a donation, and then I also send a card with the story about the organization on it. So it really helps them also to have these ambassadors. They have it on their neck, and when people ask them about it, they, spread the story about this organization and the work they're doing. So.
Yeah, I love the pendants. They're beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, really neat. Okay, so I want to ask you quickly before we finish. You do a lot of custom design work. And you talk on your website about sort of this intuitive sense of what someone's going to like. Can you talk a little bit about how you figured out that intuitive sense was there?
Well, I work with some different people who did some business coaching with me, and they were able to detect that there was something going on there. And there was a few clients that were actually still part of the group that we were part of, and they kind of allowed me to experiment on them and go like, okay, I'll let you design a piece, and without too much input. And not to say that I just sent them some piece in the mail and they had no idea what it was, but just, okay, I'm going to learn about you, I'm going to make some drawings, I'm going to observe you, and I'm going to send you a picture of what I want to make. And it turned out that I was very good at it, and much better actually than when I tried to have the customer tell me everything. I used to more ask, like, do you want this? Do you want this? Can you send me a picture? But it was bringing out my confidence more to go, let me look at you, and this is what I think would work for you. So, yeah, and if I know somebody more, or if they're a client that I've been worked with in the past, it comes much more easily because I have a better sense of who they are. But even with people that I'm just getting to know, I've been able to come up with pretty accurate ideas of what they would like to have.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I've seen, we have someone that we both know who ordered a piece from you. She had a couple of pieces that she wanted turned into something new, and she was just ecstatic. Like, the testimonial that she gave you was amazing.
Yeah, actually, she mentioned this in this video that I made, a pendant. I mean, I picked up the stone that she sent me, and it was like a photograph flashed in my mind with that one. So, because she's somebody that I know and had experienced what she's like and what her personality is like, and also seeing pictures of her, I just went, oh, yes, I know exactly what to do.
That's neat, though. What an amazing talent to have.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Kind of previously untapped, but yeah.
Yeah, but wow, that's so exciting that you've tapped it.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so people can find you again at natashajewelry.com. And before we finish up, I want to ask you my last 3 questions.
Okay.
So the first one is, if you could wave a magic wand and change anything about the world, what would it be?
If I were to change anything, what I really, really long for in the world, and I'd love to be able to change, is for people all over the world to have more confidence in themselves. Because I really think that if people, I'm including myself in this too, because I can always have more confidence to do the things that I want to do and make changes that I want to change. I really feel like if people had the kind of confidence that they should have, considering their abilities that they inherently have, that really so many problems, both personal and global, could be changed very quickly and brought in a positive direction.
Nice. Next question. What brings you the most joy?
Creating ideas, actual art, anything to do with creating.
Yeah, I need to do more of that in my life. What is one fun or interesting thing that makes you uniquely you?
It's sort of a collection of things. I guess the thing that makes me uniquely me is my, not only Nepal, but all different cultures of the world. I have kind of an insatiable curiosity about, and I love to learn about, and I love to learn things. So, I speak fluent Nepali, but I also know how to do classical Balinese dance. And
wow.
I'll probably learn Portuguese soon, and I just have an insatiable curiosity, and sometimes it makes my friends' heads spin because I have so many different interests, and I'm kind of get obsessed with them. But yeah, that would probably be the super specific, unique quality that I have.
Yeah. Speaking fluent Nepali and being able to do Balinese dance, I think, are pretty, for a Westerner, pretty unusual.
Yeah.
I love it. That's my favorite question. I love learning new things about people.
Yeah. It's my secret arsenal of talent.
Oh gosh. Well, thank you so much, Natasha. I just love your story and the transformation in it and the beauty in it. So thank you for sharing it with us today.
And thank you for asking such deep and profound questions.
It's my pleasure. That's what I love. All right. Well, have a beautiful day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.